to section 4 of Unit 2. Now, in this section, we are dealing with approaches to Christian ethics. So let us look at our section's objectives. As usual, by the end of the lesson, students should be able to differentiate between Christian ethical approaches and philosophical ethical approaches, and explain 3 Christian ethical approaches. So let us look at Christian ethical approaches in this slide. We are saying that Christian ethical approaches overlap with that of the approaches in philosophical ethics. In our previous slides, we discussed consequentialism, non-consequentialism, among others. However, the main difference in the application of these secular philosophical approaches to Christian ethics rests on how they are interpreted in the function of the dictates of the Bible and God's moral order. This means in Christian ethical approaches, we can employ philosophical ethical approaches. Yet, the basis should be rooted in the Bible and God's moral order. In other words, God or the Bible should be the basis for evaluating the rightness and wrongness of the moral agent's action, given the approaches that are used. So let's look at the approaches. We have divine command ethics. This is an approach to Christian ethics that holds that whatever God commands is right and whatever God forbids is wrong. Now, on this view, obedience to the commands of God, as found in the Bible, is the primary criterion of what makes for a good and evil act. This means, in divine command ethical theory, whatever is proposed to be right should be rooted in the dictates of God. So whatever God says is right, and whatever God says is wrong, is wrong. Let's go to the second approach. Agapistic ethics. It is an approach to Christian ethics that takes command to love as the central theme. In other words, this approach is based on Jesus' commandment or commands to his fellow followers to love. So he says in Matthew chapter 22, 37 to 40, that you shall love the Lord your God with all your might, your heart, and your soul, and even your strength and your mind. And you will love your neighbor as yourself. This approach proposes that the Christian ethicist would show love to his fellow human being and do his fellow human being no harm. There's another approach we call the biblical ethics approach. This approach to Christian ethics emphasizes the biblical text above all other authorities by attempting to apply the biblical text to contemporary situations. In other words, everything that should be defined as right or wrong should be contextually defined by the Bible. Now, the Bible serves as a code of ethics for regulating the human behavior. There's another one we call the narrative ethics. It is an approach to Christian ethics that sees that virtues must be developed within an ongoing narrative of Christian churches and the practices they inculcate in their disciples. What have we done so far? We have looked at approaches to Christian ethics, and we have said that Christian ethical approaches overlap with that of philosophical ethical approaches. And the only difference is that the source and the interpretation of these approaches is of essence. For example, approaches to Christian ethics are anchored in their interpretation in the dictates of the Bible and God's moral order. In other words, whatever the Bible and God's moral order have dictated are those things that should serve as the basis in evaluating the rightness and wrongness of human behavior. Thank you very much for having listened to this lesson. We will meet in the next session.